This story begins by showing a luxurious mansion. In it there is someone who is holding a lawsuit. The person called his friend because his child was in trouble and wanted him to solve the problem. While holding the lawsuit letter, the person calms his friend who is a member of the SEO board, because he has connections to sort everything out. The person throws away the lawsuit paper, which makes his assistant surprised, while continuing to convince his friend, if they don't fight in their youth, they won't be able to grow up. His friend thanked him, but his friend was worried about him because he had received a lawsuit letter. This person was surprised by the sudden talk. He didn't feel worried because there were many heroes on guard at his place, which made his place safe. And also inside there he had an electric man on guard. With so many people having superpowers, he didn't worry about anything anymore and everything was under his control. But a moment after he entered his office he felt the presence of someone in the darkness. There was someone wearing a bear mask who said that the person looked happy, with cold sweat, and while saying you. Seeing that person he was shocked because he turned out to be the executioner gang. In a world where criminals can run rampant, he is too dismissive and doesn't seem to know the basic laws of his world. As he slowly stepped back he slowly walked out of the door and ran away from the executioner gang. The executioner gang who saw him started to back away, slowly took out a red iron hand, which was his superpower. The executioner gang wanted him to meet his boss because his boss was an executor who asked him to meet him. The person started to run and scream, but the red iron started to chase him and caught him. There was a badge on the bloody shirt. It turned out that it was the person who was previously caught who was in pain. In front of him there was someone holding an apple and crushing it slowly. He stepped on a photo showing the bribery and infidelity of that person. There were apple fragments scattered around it as bait. The person felt he was too noisy. By sitting with one leg crossed he was like a boss and called him trash. The person began to see clearly the person who was talking about him, and as soon as he saw him, he was surprised to find that in front of him was the most feared criminal known as the executor. The executor started to stand up while wondering why trash seemed to be roaming around and being left behind by the hero. The executor walked towards the person. He was shaking with fear. He couldn't run because his hands were tied behind his back. Then the executor started to sit up and look at him, holding his shoulders while saying that he went there to clean up the rubbish that the heroes could get away with and didn't clean up. The executor started to release his superpower by making his hands glow and his eyes red, while continuing to look at the person with a serious face. Suddenly a green ball came towards the executor. The executor glanced and thought, high-level heroes have come here. Two people slowly approached the executor. They looked nervous and trembling with fear. One person holding a gun asked the executor to stop immediately. The executor began to see green and white rubber bracelets indicating that their rank was low. The executor called them Kim's henchmen from the association while thinking that they were just small potatoes. They were both scared and called the executor a trash criminal. The executor started emitting dark smoke from his feet, which shocked the henchmen. The executor disappeared. One of them, the person who first attacked him, looked up. The executor quickly arrived right in front of him and started attacking his head with his superpower. The executor hit the person's head against the wall, which made the wall have a fairly large crack. The friend who couldn't move because of the speed of the executor started looking back quickly. The executor saw him holding his friend and called them hypocrites. The man fell down with a trembling voice. He mentioned the director. While looking at him, the executor was confused as to what he meant by director. Suddenly someone attacked the executor suddenly while saying good job to the henchman. The executor managed to survive the attack because the executor managed to create a defense from his superpower. The person who attacked him. How does it feel to receive a blow this time? You can see his index hand is shining. The person is called Kim Yi-hoon, the head of security for the hero Han Yeon Kim, who has the ability to air shot. He insulted the executor as a trash criminal and asked the executor, does it hurt? The executor was shocked by the large shot thrown at him, which left him with scratches.
You've come this far, but you didn't leave unnoticed, right?
The executor said while looking sharply at Kim Yi-hoon. They looked at each other and an aura appeared that made them ready to fight each other. Kim Yi-hoon also said insulting words to the executor. When they were ready to fight, suddenly the phone rang from Kim Yi-hoon's pocket. The executor reminded Kim Yi-hoon that his phone was ringing, because the executor wanted a fair fight without cheating. Kim Yi-hoon started to rush to pick up the phone and asked the executor to wait a moment. The executor thought that this was a bad habit of a hero, but suddenly the phone rang from his pocket, making them startled. They looked at each other and were confused because the phone ringing had the same song. They both picked up their phones. It turned out that the executor was calling his girlfriend, who was reminded him not to be late. The executor reasoned that he was in a meeting now. Meanwhile, On the other hand, Kim Yoo-hoon was calling his father, shouting for him to get there quickly. Kim Yoo-hoon accepted his father's request to get there quickly. They hung up the phone at the same time. The executor reasoned that something had happened and wanted to leave immediately. Kim Yoo-hoon, who also happens to want to go, feels related to the executor, but the executor is uncomfortable with Kim Yoo-hoon, who pretends to be close to him. The executor with his superpowers left saying he would reply another time. Kim Yoo-hoon denied that because it seemed like they would be able to get along if the executor wasn't a criminal. Behind him the person was scolding Kim Yoo-hoon, who was saying what a shame. The man felt that he should catch the bastard who had just kidnapped him. Kim Yoo-hoon's two henchmen tried to calm him down, who turned out to be a member of the council. Kim Yoo-hoon casually apologized without feeling guilty while taking a cigarette, while the council member was angry because he had even submitted an official request to the association, but the results did not meet expectations. After lighting his cigarette, he was surprised to see a piece of paper. The council member thought that the photo was his, the paper that Kim Yoo-hoon was referring to. The council member took the initiative to hide the photo while continuing to thank Kim Yoo-hoon, but he just casually walked past him. He saw the thing that caught his attention more, a piece of paper that was in a pile of wood. When Kim Yoo-hoon looked at it more closely, he saw that it turned out to be a wedding invitation. Kim Yoo-hoon looked at the invitation and guessed who the actual executor was. A few moments later, the television media started reporting at the scene of the crime about the hero family who managed to save council member Choi, who was kidnapped by the executor. Even this news became the main news. The news showed a place that had been marked so that no one would enter. Inside there was a shadow that was approaching. They talked about this and guessed that he was the head of the family. It turned out that he was indeed the head of the family. He was calling someone to discuss the evidence of the incident at that location. The news anchor tried to ask him several questions. The reporter said that he was from TVC and wanted to ask some questions about the incident that occurred. The head of the family seemed unprepared for the reporter's sudden questions. The head of the family is named Kim Young-sik. He is discussing the crimes of the executor, which are becoming more serious. Because the human population with superpowers exceeds 40%, heroes appear who are tasked with defeating people who abuse their superpowers. The heroes also managed to form an alliance, but instead of decreasing. As a result, more and more villains appeared. With his superpowers, Executor managed to win the fight against the leading villains. Not only criminals, he even managed to kill famous heroes, such as heroes who were under him and were asking for help from the association. With a sharp gaze and seemingly out of control, he managed to defeat everyone who stood in his way, be they villains or heroes, and became known as the most feared villain. Kim Young-sik started to emit smoke from his mouth. With his superpower, namely monster mode, he made his body much bigger than before, saying that he now even dares to target ordinary people. The reporter behind him became nervous while continuing to praise the head of the Kim family, and above them the sound of a helicopter was heard. The residents looked up because they were curious about the sound, which turned out to be the Kim family's private helicopter. A moment later a woman came out of the helicopter, who was Kim Young-sik's wife. His wife asked him to immediately get into the helicopter because they will soon be late. Kim Young-sik then with his superpower jumped towards the helicopter. When he got to the helicopter, Kim Young-sik grabbed the helicopter's leg, which dented the helicopter's leg. Led by the Hanyeong Kim family, the Heroes Association will not remain silent. The residents below thanked and praised the family's kindness. Kim Young-sik's wife wanted Kim Young-sik when he arrived at their house to repair the damaged helicopter leg, which made Kim Young-sik speechless. The reporter below was so impressed that he even forgot that the broadcast was still going on. His colleague reminded him that the broadcast was still going on. After realizing, the reporter continues the news.
Both heroes and criminals, even now civilians, the executors. But as long as the association is still there, we are all safe.
The location changed to the executor, who was looking for his tie in a hurry. His subordinates said that his tie was in the glove box. The executor continued his conversation about the news that was broadcast. The news showed that the fat council member was considered an ordinary civilian. His subordinates wanted to take care of him, but the executor has more important matters now and will take care of them later. While driving an automatically driven jeep, the executor ties his tie and says that today is an important day.
Because today is an important day, I actually want to deal with important people. It's a shame. Hanyeong Kim's hero family really annoys me.
After saying that, he looked at his mask, which was moving. The executor asked his subordinate called Jay to replace the mask filter, and Jay accepted his boss's request and handed it over. Just him. Suddenly a telephone appeared and told his boss that there was a telephone call for him. The executor asked to connect the telephone to him.
Upper, why haven't you arrived yet?
I'm in the parking area now.
While stopping the car,
Is it true?
Of course, I'm never late. This is the first time I've met your family, so can't be late.
The executor brought a souvenir for his girlfriend's family, namely premium fruit and also premium meat. His girlfriend started to greet him by waving at him while calling him Oppa. His girlfriend thought that the executor would be late. In fact, his girlfriend was angry with the executor who was almost late on such an important day. The executor apologized to his girlfriend for being almost late on such an important day. His girlfriend forgave him with a blushing face, which made the executor grateful that he had forgiven him. The executor started holding his girlfriend's hand. The executor and his girlfriend entered his girlfriend's house. The executor asked his girlfriend if she was nervous, and her girlfriend said he wasn't nervous. While showing the blood-splattered image of the executor who was a murderer, the executor's name was on Jaerim. He hid his identity. When he saw the woman in the hospital yard, on Jaerim's heart suddenly beat fast. On Jaerim falls in love at first sight with an ordinary girl he loves, and immediately considers marrying her. When he was about to open the door, on Jaerim's girlfriend told on Jaerim something that might surprise on Jaerim. On Jaerim felt that he would not be surprised. He jokingly said, "They're political and business VIP members." On Jaerim thought that whoever was behind there would not be as surprising as on Jaerim's secret, who is an executor. On Jaerim was surprised by her boyfriend's answer, who said more or less like that. Her boyfriend told on Jaerim to come in with her because all her family was already inside. On Jaerim looked through the gap in the door. Her girlfriend slowly started to open the door. And that was the first time on Jaerim met the family, his girlfriend, and when the light started to disappear. On Jaerim was surprised by his girlfriend's family, which made him flinch.
Her brother, when you are here, please don't reveal your killing intent. I want you to see my family. Oppa, here they are.
His mother is named Choi Hee and is the wife of the current head of the Kim Hanyeong family. His father is Kim Young-sik, who is the current head of the Kim Hanyeong family. His eldest brother is Kim Haeun, who is the research director of the Hero Association. His uncle is Kim Yi-hoon, who is the head of family security, Kim Hanyeong. And his grandfather was named Kim Ho, the head of the Kim Hanyeong family. Previously, his grandfather apologized to Jaerim because they had surprised him at their first meeting. On Jaerim was shocked and nervous about the incident. He didn't expect that his girlfriend, Hain, was really the youngest daughter of this family, and thought that this was a trap. But Hain looked at him pitifully and thought that this was too much. He showed his cute face and continued to look at Jaemin. Jaemin asked Hain to come out for a moment and approached the Kim family slowly. After that, Jaemin sighed. And when he raised his hand, it was as if he wanted to grab someone.
It's an honor to meet you for the first time. I'm in Yemen, and I've been dating Hain for 2 years.
Jaemin immediately paid his respects by sitting down and bowing his head. Jaemin's father was surprised, while his grandfather thought that someone who could date his grandson had to be someone who had a spirit like him. Jaemin shows a cunning face, because as executor Jaemin has gone through all kinds of crises in his life. Jaemin gives the gifts he brought to Hain's family. Hain's family accepts them even though Jaemin's presence is enough. Jaemin tells Hain's family that it's just a small gift and it wasn't a hassle to carry it for him. Jaemin held his glasses. With a look full of confidence, he was sure he could, and would continue to hide his identity until he and Hain got married. On Jaemin felt that the food here was very delicious, while his grandfather thought that Jaemin was very handsome like when he was young. But there was an uncle there who had an uncomfortable air. Jaemin didn't realize that his uncle Kim Yi-hoon had their marriage certificate, which fell during the previous fight. Hain's grandfather looked at the promotion card and was impressed with it. Hain's grandfather praised on Jaemin, who had become a representative at a young age, because Hain's grandfather was bad at management. Jaemin felt a bit embarrassed because he only worked in a small company. Hain's grandfather was named Mr. Kim Ho, the previous head of the Kim family. The legendary figure who raised the Kim family to this day is a simple figure. Humans with superpowers make up 40% of the entire human population, in families where inherited genes at a similar level of abilities are manifested. A bald-headed thug ordered him to give him the money, otherwise he would stick broken glass into this child, who for some reason had a bigger body than him. A heroic family unit begins to emerge. Kim Ho in his youth was just an ordinary house husband. Because these thugs woke up Kim Ho's son, he was beaten black and blue. Her captive was rescued, and she thanked Kim Ho, who was carrying her second child, and was also carrying her first child. They previously lived simply and were just a group of families who took the law into their own hand. They became very popular, with many books being printed, centered around a prominent family. They eventually founded an internationally recognized society of heroes, and in front of Jaemin, A grandfather who even had difficulty eating meat was the legendary Kim Ho. Jaemin heard that Kim Ho's influence was so extensive that Jaemin couldn't lower his guard if he was still around him. Jaemin was suddenly called. Jaemin was surprised by the call from Hain's mother. While Kim Ho, Hain's grandfather, was still trying to chew his food, Hain's mother called Jaemin because she was curious about the work that Jaemin often did. With a small smile, Jaemin said,
I mainly recruit cleaning specialists and dispatch teams to factories, buildings, and other places.
While showing someone who seemed to be the executor subordinate who was dealing with thugs.
That needs cleaning service.
While showing the executor's men who were cleaning up the thugs, a thug who was still alive tried to shoot him. The executor's men were shocked and didn't have time to dodge.
That are necessary for bus scenes purposes.
While showing the executor who hit the thug's head and deflected the gunshot, and the final scene shows the sharp gaze of the executor.
I also visit sites myself to handle the cleaning.
Jaemin said while putting on a face like a good and flawless person. Kim Ho praised Jaemin because the fact that Jaemin was personally involved showed his great enthusiasm. Jaemin thought that Hain's grandfather was too excessive in praising him. At the door there was someone knocking. It turned out that he was a chef who worked at the restaurant. He gave the additional order requested by Hain's mother. Jaemin was surprised by how much food there was. Hain's mother ordered a lot of food because Hain's mother felt that Jaemin had a lot of work and had to eat well. Jaemin pretended happy to survive even though he was actually forced to. Jaemin was given more food from his in-laws, and Jaemin was forced to finish it and was grateful. His in-laws offered more, but Jaemin refused and felt that was enough. Jaemin suddenly heard the phone ringing from his cell phone and turned his gaze to his cell phone. Jaemin was surprised by a sudden call from his subordinate who Jaemin changed the name to the company to disguise the contact. Jaemin asked permission to go out to call for a moment about his work. After leaving the dining room, Jaemin answered the phone from his subordinate who suddenly called his boss. Jaemin used a headset and said to his men that he had said that he had important business to handle tonight. His men apologized because it was about the director of Hengung who Jaemin referred to as K. K is an executive officer. He always wears a mask and his face is hidden. His subordinates reported that K had surrounded the target they were after. Jaemin assumed that they had surrounded the place where the entire Kim family would be present. Jaemin praised him and told his men to tell them to process it immediately. Suddenly there was the sound of footsteps heading towards the yard too. When his men wanted to tell his boss who the target was, suddenly Kim Yi-hoon came and surprised Jaemin. His men had not had time to tell Jaemin who was the target, but Jaemin turned it off and looked panicked. Kim Yi-hoon casually sat down, saying to Jaemin that I'm not bothering you, am I? Kim Yi-hoon said while offering him a cigarette. Jaemin didn't accept it because Jaemin's girlfriend didn't like him, so he made him quit smoking. Kim Yi-hoon was also naughty to Jaemin by saying that he was affectionate. Jaemin felt that Kim Yi-hoon was listening to his conversation because he was very annoying today. Jaemin also thought that he wanted to quietly clean it up. Jaemin remembered Hain, who was very nervous and also excited about their wedding tomorrow. Jaemin shook his head. He put it off and felt that it wasn't the time yet. Meanwhile, Kim Yi-hoon is not ready for his nephew's wedding. Kim Yi-hoon started talking to Jaemin. Jaemin was ready with the questions he would ask. Kim Yi-hoon felt that Jaemin must have been surprised when Hain introduced their family. Jaemin answered that he was not surprised at all. Kim Yi-hoon said that Hain was physically weak and did not have any strength. To save Hain, the Kim family tried their best to hide Hain from the media. Hain couldn't even talk about how he was also part of a family of heroes. This made Hain, who was always in the hospital, very lonely. Kim Yi-hoon hoped that he could now find happiness with the right person. Jaemin, who heard this, felt very sympathetic to Hain and want to make him happy. Kim Yi-hoon thanked Jaemin for being close to Hain and making him happy. Jaemin felt that it wasn't because of Hain's happiness and told Kim Yi-hoon that if he wanted a wedding invitation, Jaemin could give it to him because Jaemin knew someone who was an expert in that field. Jaemin reached into his pocket and wanted to give Kim Yi-hoon a wedding invitation, but after Jaemin looked in his jacket pocket, he couldn't find it. Kim Yi-hoon suddenly slammed his hand on the table while showing Jaemin and Hain's wedding invitation, which Jaemin was now looking for. With a suspicious face, and while putting out a cigarette, Kim Yi-hoon asked Jaemin if he was looking for this. Jaemin was shocked by the letter that Kim Yi-hoon put. Kim Yi-hoon asked Jaemin where he got it, and they stared at each other sharply. Jaemin felt he had made a mistake by dropping the letter when he was about to leave. Jaemin felt gloomy and thought about how he could make such a stupid mistake. Jaemin started to release the power of the executor and thought that he should take care of it now. When the executor wanted to attack, suddenly the speaker sounded and startled them both. The person who used it was not an employee of the restaurant. He grabbed the employee and used the speaker. He asked the Kim family if they had finished eating. It can be seen that K and his men are threatening them with their superpowers. Kay says that this restaurant is now under the control of the executor. Jaerim, who is an executor, was confused by this incident because he did not feel that he was the one who ordered them to do that. The executor's subordinate, called Kay, began to use his superpowers, releasing a shockwave on the floor which made the floor crack. Otherwise, Kay would order his subordinates to kill the prisoners they captured. Kay, while wearing his head coat, started calling the Kim family hypocritical and disgusting people. Jaemin and Kim Yi-hoon showed their displeasure with serious faces. They started running hastily from the Kim family yard. They started running towards the dining room. Kim Yi-hoon immediately opened the door in a hurry. Kim Yi-hoon, who was tired, started to see the Kim family members. Kim Yi-hoon was surprised to see his family who had gone outside from the restaurant. Made Kim Yi-hoon surprised. Jaerim with both hands gripped the railing tightly. He started to look carefully looking for where Hain was. When he looked to his left, he saw the Kim family who were outside the mansion. There was the Kim family father, the Kim family mother, the Kim family's eldest sibling, the head the previous Kim family, the Kim family grandfather, and most importantly the person Jaemin was looking for was showing sad expressions. She is the only daughter of the Kim family and Hain's youngest child. Jaemin, who was the executor, was angry at the person who dared to impersonate him. From a distance, Jaemin saw someone with yellow hoodie hair and wearing a mask. Jaemin was surprised by K's presence there, because he didn't feel like he was the one who assigned him here. Jaemin started to look at the messages on his cell phone. He felt that instead of taking care of the Kim family, K and his subordinates should take care of the Lee family. In the chat, his subordinate named Kim Sa-won wanted to inform him that Director K had changed his target to the Hanyong family, but because his boss suddenly hanging up the phone, he didn't have time to tell his boss and could only send a message. Jaerim felt panicked and broke out in cold sweat over this unexpected incident. Jaemin was confused about what to do now. Behind him, Kim Yi-hoon patted Jaerim on the shoulder, calling Jaerim. Kim Yi-hoon wanted Jaerim to stay away from there. Jaerim was surprised by his sudden arrival. Jaerim felt uncomfortable with Kim Ji-hoon's presence and asked what he wanted to do now. Jaerim felt like he had to go there because Hain was there. While looking at him suspiciously, Kim Yi-hoon said that he knew about that. Kim Yi-hoon started to take out an airshot from his index finger. He planned to shoot the man there, namely K, while using his aura to give a signal to his brother. Jaerim felt that Kim Yi-hoon still suspected him. His older brother, who got the signal from his younger brother, was shocked. Looking back, he knew that Kim Yi-hoon was going to use his ability, and Kim Young-sik intended to divert their attention as much as possible. Kim Young-sik bought time by asking K how their information was leaked, and where K got the information. Since their presence there was supposed to be kept secret. K assumes that they think they are extraordinary, and thinks that the leaked information is just that, said K with a smile. Kim Young-sik was angry and confused about what information was leaked besides their presence there. K immediately got out of the car, and intended to talk about information about the Hanyong family which was not known to the public, after hearing that Kim Young-sik and Kim Ho thought it was impossible for them to know. K said that there was actually a youngest member hidden in their family, while showing Hain's scared face. Hain's mother calmed Hain, told Hain not to listen to K, and said that if K was too presumptuous, next to him was Hain's eldest brother Kim Haeun. Hain felt no problem about the information and asked K where he heard the information. K laughed at Hain, who was too innocent, because Hain thought that K would tell him, but unfortunately he didn't. If K had more time, he could have kidnapped and made Hain a hostage. On the other hand, Kim Yi-hoon had started aiming at K, who was silent. Kim Yi-hoon felt that his preparations were almost complete with the light around his index finger getting denser, but suddenly Jaerim jumped from the fence and made Kim Yi-hoon feel confused, making Kim Yi-hoon's skills invalid. Even though he was suspicious of Jaerim, he was still worried about Jaerim as his nephew's girlfriend. Hain's mother was shocked to see Jaerim suddenly jump. Jaerim, without using any strength, jumped from the third floor. With a serious face he started looking for the place where he would land. Hain called her boyfriend Jaerim Oppa with a surprised face. Jaerim started to land in the bushes in the restaurant yard. This made everyone who saw him suddenly become silent. K was confused by the person who suddenly fell and caused a lot of dust to fly. Feeling anxious, Hain immediately ran towards Jaemin, who was starting to come out of the bushes.
What are you doing? That was dangerous,
said Hain while hitting Jaemin.
It's fine. It's Fee.
Jaemin said while smiling, holding back the pain. K was shocked by the sharp gaze that Jaerim gave him. Jaerim told K to be quiet by trying telepathy with K. K, with a confused expression, remembered the familiar face in front of him and tried to receive his telepathy. K remembered that he was the executor's boss, but Jaerim's telepathy failed, and K instead thought about the executor's casual clothes and tried to call Jaerim. While sighing, Jaerim picked up the rock under him because he had no other choice to cover K's mouth. Hain asked what his girlfriend was doing. Jaerim started to lift his legs and pose as a pitcher, while trying to connect his telepathy to K, which failed to connect. He sharply told K to close his mouth. Jaerim told K to be quiet while throwing the stone as hard as he could at K. With thick smoke behind it, the rock began heading towards K. With full force, the rock glowed due to the strong throw, making the rock hot. The stone hit K, who was still daydreaming, and shocked him in pain. Kim Young-sik, Hain's father, was confused by this incident and thought that Jaerim had superpowers, at the same time shrinking his body and deactivating monster mode. Kim Young-sik was surprised by this incident, because previously he thought that Jaerim was one of the executor's subordinates. Jaerim, with an angry expression, began to slowly approach K, which made K confused. Jaerim began to clench his fists as hard as possible. Jaerim immediately ran quickly towards K, making K confused by the incident. Still without his superpower, Jaerim tried to hit K. K was shocked by the incident and felt scared while asking why his boss did that to him. Jaerim, who was about to go to K, started to be chased by Kim Young-sik, Hain's father. Kim Young-sik jumped up and, deactivating his monster mode, he started jumping towards Jaerim. Kim Young-sik stopped Jaerim because he thought Jaerim was just an ordinary citizen. Jaerim asked his father-in-law to let him go. Kim Young-sik was confused, because he felt that Jaerim was strong enough to make him unable to stop Jaerim. Jaerim angrily called the man a presumptuous person. Jaerim pointed at K and said that K wanted to kidnap my Hain. K was confused by that and asked about my Hain. Young-sik tries to lift Jaerim, who is angry, and makes him step down, while Jaerim is angry with K, who dares to threaten Hain. Threatens K with words that hopefully K will have bad luck, while using harsh words towards K. Jaerim said that he would make K regret it while shaking his cell phone. It turned out that Jaerim quickly typed and told K and his men to step back. Jaerim continued to curse at K, while K focused on his cell phone, which was receiving notifications. K felt confused by the typing of his boss, who was called brother by K, who told him to step down. Jaerim was still angry and kept asking K if he understood. Hain's father was confused by his son-in-law's behavior and asked Jaerim to move to a safe place. Jaerim, who was still angry, was angry in his heart. He was sad and wanted K to understand, because that was the only way for K to leave in the midst of this chaos. His subordinates came to K and called him the director and asked him if he was okay. K was still daydreaming about his brother's words, while his subordinates, who didn't know anything, said that Jaerim was very impudent. K felt sad and cried, wondering why his brother did that to him. His subordinates were confused as to why the director suddenly cried. Jaerim came to Hain and Hain asked
why Jaerim always did dangerous things.
K felt hurt because Jaerim was so familiar with the Kim family. K, with a sad face, was confused by his brother and didn't understand what Jaerim was planning at all. His subordinates said that the director didn't need to worry because Director J gave him a time bomb. His subordinates started to light the time bomb and made the time of the bomb decrease over time. The men told K to get rid of the heroes and the impudent man together. K felt nervous because they didn't know that the man was the boss. His men said that they had to wait a moment, but suddenly a green light hit him, which made him drop the bomb. The green light was produced by Kim Yi-hoon, and he told one of the Kim family members to immediately take the bomb. K's men didn't want that to happen and tried to take the bomb, which was controlled by a member of the Kim family. The one controlling it was Hain's mother, Choi-hee. She told them to hand it over to her, who had the ability of telekinesis. Choi-hee moved the bomb upwards with his telekinesis. The men didn't want the bomb to explode in vain and were still trying to chase it. Hain's mother asked them not to worry about the bomb and told her family to take care of the people. One of the men saw smoke coming out from behind her. It turned out it is Director K's ability. His ability is Beast Transformation. K jumped, causing an explosion on the floor. Kim Yi-hoon pointed up and shouted, warning K, who was jumping up to get the bomb. Everyone in the Kim family was shocked by K, who jumped and was about to get the bomb. K, while about to take the bomb, smiled at Jaerim. Hain's mother started raising the bomb while Jaerim pointed his cell phone at K. Jaerim angrily asked K to immediately leave from up there, which shocked K. K pretended that his hand didn't reach the bomb. His men panicked because Director K didn't get the bomb. With time running out, Hain's eldest brother, Ha-hyun, used his barrier ability to protect his family from the effects of the bomb. Kay landed back in the car, which was far away from the bomb. The time on the bomb was showing towards 0. Creates a small area smoke explosion at the start, but when the bomb reached its peak, it exploded over a large area. Jaerim tries to protect Hain even though Hain's eldest brother has given him a barrier, by showing Kim Young-sik hiding behind his eldest child, while Ha-hyun still makes sure his barrier protects his family. Ha-hyun was surprised by the explosion produced by such a small bomb, and he was also curious about who made it. Kay made sure to slowly leave the scene. One of the Kim family who was inside the barrier started asking if they were okay, while Kay was still confused about why Jaerim was with the Kim family. Even though Kay is confused, he will still do what the executor asks. When Kay wanted to leave according to the executor's orders, his subordinates quickly came to Kay. His subordinates said that the director didn't need to worry, making Kay confused about what his subordinates were talking about. It turned out that the men were carrying lots of bombs as a precaution. Hain's grandfather, Kim Ho, who saw the incident, was ready to use his strength to beat them up. But when the subordinate asked Director Kay to come along, Kay kicked his subordinate in the face, making Kim Ho confused about this. Kay scolded his men not to do anything and prepared duct tape to tie him up, making his men cry, while the Kim family was confused but not Jaerim, who looked happy. While bringing his subordinates who were tied up, Kay pointed at Jaerim, nervously saying, "Even though we are planning to carry out terror, but I am impressed by your courage in challenging me even though you are only a civilian." His words made Jaerim feel satisfied. Kay wanted to end it for today and hurried to leave, making things quiet around him. His subordinates accepted it, while Kay didn't know what else to do, and thought it should be what Jaerim wanted. His other men were confused and asked Kay whether we should go like this. Kay answered yes, we will retreat. His subordinates told Director Kay that there was someone behind Kay. Kay, in cold sweat, was confused by what his subordinates said. When Kay looked back, he was shocked. The person asked Kay, did Kay think he would leave that easily after making a mess like this? The one who said that was Hain's father, Kim Young-sik. Hain's father responded that Kay was underestimating them because he wanted to just leave, while aiming a punch that would hit Kay. Kay wondered if he had done it right, brother, and wonder again if he did it right. Kay was handcuffed using anti-superpower handcuffs, with a broken face. While in the police car, Kay was confused about what was happening and could only daydream. Jaerim asked Kay to hold on a little longer, making Kay even more confused. Kay was confused about what Jaerim was doing, which disturbed the police guarding him and said that Kay was too noisy. On the other hand, someone is under a condensing tree. The Kim family, talking about what happened before, said that they had arrested someone important. Even though Jaerim feels a little sorry, the important thing is that Jaerim can calm down for now, apologize to Kay and hold on for a little longer. But suddenly,
Arpa,
Yes.
with footsteps stopping, Hain said.
let's stop this.
Jaerim was confused and surprised by his girlfriend's statement. Jaerim held Jarim's shoulder and was surprised by what Hain suddenly said. Hain's family was shocked by the screams made by Jaerim and wondered what had happened. Jaerim felt confused because this was his first meeting with his family, while wondering why Hain suddenly changed his mind. Hain cries and says that's the problem, making Jaerim reflexively raise his hand. Jaerim looked at Hain sharply and was still confused about what Hain meant. It turns out that Hain felt that it should be a simple meeting, but the meeting actually caused chaos, causing many injuries to be suffered by Jaerim. Hain pointed to one of the wounds on his shoulder and told Jaerim to look at his situation. Hain, who thinks that Jaerim is an ordinary person, feels that Jaerim is pushing himself too hard. While holding Jarim's shoulder, Hain said that the cause of all this chaos was because Hain had a hero family. Kim Yi-hoon, who was surprised by Hain's decision, started to come to Hain, but was stopped by Hain's mother. Hain, while crying, said,
If you marry me, this might happen again in the future, so let's stop it.
But like a manhwa romance, Jaerim hugged Hain, who was crying. Jaerim said that the only thing he was afraid of was Hain. It was possible that Hain was hurt. Jarim's words made her heart feel calmer. Jaerim wants Hain to always be by his side from now on. Hain agrees. Jaerim was in a cold sweat, grateful that he could survive even though he almost failed in his marriage. Jaerim is grateful to have survived the previous incident thanks to his men, and he hopes Hain can live happily with him for 1,000 years and beyond. Hain's father and eldest brother congratulated him, while Hain's mother was moved by the incident. Jaemin, who saw them, had forgotten that they were here. Hain's mother said,
This is a beautiful story about her future son-in-law.
Jaerim became embarrassed by Hain's mother, who considered him a future son-in-law. Hain's mother asked and was surprised because Hain's mother thought that Jaerim was an ordinary person without superpowers. Jaerim confirmed his mother's opinion and said that he was an ordinary person. So as not to be suspected, Jaerim said that he was actually powerless, but Jaerim had good athletic abilities from a long time ago, even though it was true that Jaerim didn't use his superpowers at all. Hain's father praises Jaerim because he previously seemed quite strong. Jaerim is embarrassed by his father's statement. Jaerim said that maybe I was angry when he said Hain's name and immediately he wanted to attack him. His mother was shocked and called him the power of love. When their doubts about Jaerim began to disappear, Hain's uncle Kim Yi-hoon suddenly stopped their conversation. Jaerim panicked because he forgot that Kim Yi-hoon was here, and thought that he would be finished if Kim Yi-hoon brought his wedding invitation. Surprisingly, it turned out that Kim Yi-hoon wanted to apologize to Jaerim for doubting him. Jaerim was confused by Kim Yi-hoon's actions, which did not match what he had imagined. Kim Yi-hoon previously thought that Jaerim was the executor's subordinate, but he didn't expect that Hain and Jaerim were actually the targets. While hiding behind the curtain because he was surprised by his uncle's strange behavior, Hain asked what his uncle meant. Kim Yi-hoon told them to wait, making the Kim family including Jaerim confused. Kim Young-sik started taking the wedding invitation from his trouser pocket. Kim Yi-hoon showed the wedding invitation letter and said, "Here it is." Hain was confused by Hain and Jaerim's wedding invitation, which was in his uncle's hands. Hain asked his uncle where he got it. His uncle explained that this was a wedding invitation letter, actually left by the executor at the scene. Hain was shocked by the news. That's what made Kim Yi-hoon suspect that Jaerim was the executor's subordinate. But after seeing today's incident, Kim Yi-hoon thought that he knew that it wasn't true. Hain's father, who heard the conversation, took out his monster mode, while saying that the letter left by the executor was a warning from the executor to the Kim family. They guessed at each other and assumed that the executor's next target would be these children, who are Hain and Jaerim. Hain's mother realized this when she saw Hain's information leak, and assumed that the executor's provocation was quite striking. Jaerim was confused by the behavior of those who used their superpowers and thought that it was quite dangerous. Jaerim was also surprised by Hain's grandfather, who was suddenly up there. Hain's grandfather said that the time had come. While spreading his hands, Grandpa Hain added that this is when they will activate their family's special force. Kim Yi-hoon, Kim Young-sik, and Kim Ha-hyun started to glance at each other. Instantly their movements became a song entitled Hanyeong Kim Family, starting with Hain's grandfather, Kim Ho, who jumped right into the silhouette of the moon, followed by Hain's mother, Choi Hee, who moves as if she were using her telekinesis ability, and continued again by Kim Yi-hoon, who released his airshot ability, and continued again by Kim Young-sik, who used his monster mode ability, and continued by showing Kim Ha-hyun using his barrier ability. And that's Mr. Kim's special force, with the final scene showing them posing as if they were releasing their abilities. Jaerim was confused about what was happening, while Hain appreciated them with applause. By turning his head back, Kim Ho said that the gift that Kim Ho would give, even though he was quite old, was that he would give a wedding gift in the form of the executor's arm. Hain was touched to hear that, but Hain was confused and broke out in cold sweat, wondering, "Wedding gift? My arm?" Hain's mother clapped her hands to finish their conversation and get to the point. Hain's mother wants Jaerim to also stay at the Kim family's house for protection, which makes Jaerim doubt the answer he will give. Jaerim wanted to refuse them gently, thinking that living with the heroes was something ridiculous. Jaerim thought that the special force system was a bit excessive. When Jaerim turned to Hain, he was surprised by the expression Hain made. Hain thought that it was actually too much and felt sorry for forcing Jaerim to follow him. Jaerim, who is an executor, cannot take back his words, because it is not only his identity that is at stake, but also the identity of his organization. Hain's mother, who heard Jaerim's answer, thought that they should postpone the wedding until the executor was caught, making Jaerim cornered and having to stay together. Kim Yi-hoon said welcome to Jaerim, making him regret the decision he proposed. Hain's mother reassures Jaerim not to worry, because there is no place more exciting than living at her in-laws' house. Hain adds that they will also protect Jaerim. Jaerim, with a forced smile, regretted his decision and started cursing. In a prison tower facility, there was someone who ordered a prisoner to come out while throwing a key. The person in custody was K. He asked who sent him. The person answered that all this had been arranged by the executor. K understood and started glancing at the key. K said that it was within his expectations and that it was not wrong to trust his brother. While lifting his hat with his finger, he thought, "Be happy as long as you can, stupid." He is the worst villain, on Jaerim the executor. He disguised himself as an ordinary person to meet his lover, but was met by his in-laws and family. He faced the Hanyeong Kim family, which turned out to be his girlfriend's family. and to receive their protection from attacks by the executor who is himself. Jaerim finally moves to the residence of Hain's family, his girlfriend. Jaerim looked at Hain's residence curiously. In Jaerim's backpack there was a dog with yellow hair. Jaerim rang the bell to get Hain out of the house. Hain greeted him and said welcome to Jaerim. Jaerim and Hain hugged. Hain was worried about Jaerim, but Jaerim told Hain not to worry because he was fine. Hain told Jaerim to go into his house, while Jaerim's dog was angry seeing what happened. Hain tells Jaerim that his father is throwing Jaerim a coming out party, letting Jaerim know why Hain told him to come with an empty stomach. Hain's mother welcomes Jaerim, who will move into her residence. Jaerim thinks that her plan is already working. Hain's mother was surprised by the puppy Jaerim was referring to and thought he was very cute. Jaerim thought that he would make the Kim family regret letting him come to his residence. Hain's mother sent for Jaerim, and after arriving at her house she was greeted by the other members of the Kim family, all the while thinking that Jaerim would make Hain's mother regret having let her into her residence. And the scene shifts to a few days ago on Sunday in a building. Kay is still confused about what happened last time, and wonders what his brother is thinking. Kay is also curious about the sudden meeting held by the executor. In this scene, the villain executive member, the executor, is introduced. A woman with a transparent cloth that covers her mouth up to her neck is named Q, who is the executive planning director. The person with the bear mask is called Jae, who is the executive security director. And chaired by Jaerim, the executor, he invited them to this place to announce his marriage. Kay was surprised by the news of Jaerim's marriage. Q, holding his lips, thought that Jaerim would marry him. Kay thought the woman was crazy and very difficult to handle. K's words made Q angry. Q angrily said harsh words, and with his superpower intended to punch Kay. Kay arrogantly wanted to try Q attack. They looked at each other and were ready to accept and launch the attack, but the executor stopped them with his mental attack and said enough. The executor told them both to sit down immediately. Kay felt intimidated by his brother's mental attacks. Meanwhile, Q vibrated because of the executor's mental attack. Jae, who was not involved in any problems with them, congratulated the executor on his marriage. Jae asked the executor about the couple's wedding date. The executor says that the wedding will take place in 8 months, and he starts turning on the screen projector. Jaerim shows a photo of his girlfriend. Jaerim explains that he does not have any abilities and she named Hain. Q felt disappointed because it turned out he was not the executor chosen. The executor had no intention of revealing his identity, but suddenly Kay hit the table and told his brother to wait a moment and remember the woman. Kay remembered it and explained that the woman the executor was going to marry was the youngest child of the Hanyeong Kim family, which surprised them all. The executor confirmed Kay's words if the family he was going to marry into was one of the 5 founding families of the Hero Association, the pillar of the organization, the Hanyeong Kim family. Kay was connected and knew why his brother was so close to the Kim family at that time. Jaerim thought about Hain and came to one conclusion. While dropping the projector remote, Jaerim said that this unexpected situation would be the best opportunity to defeat that trash hero. Jaerim thought that all he needed was Hain. Kay thought that his brother's marriage had hidden intentions. Kay thought that his marriage was just a decoy, and his main goal was to destroy the Hanyeong Kim family. Kay thought that the executor was a great person who even used a marriage as bait. The executor was confused by the expression that Kay made. The executor said that as a future son-in-law, he could infiltrate the hero faction and gain their protection, and the executor would start his hunt after the wedding. Hearing the executor words, they thought that the executor plan was a very good plan. The executor continues, if his prey starts to let his guard down, the executor will explain the plan to them and tell them to proceed carefully, thinking that if there is a sudden death, they will not be able to calm down and will not want to continue the wedding. The executive director told the executor to hand it over to them. Jae denied it and asked the executor. The executor was confused and asked what he wanted to ask. Jae explained that one of Hanyeong Kim's family members would be heading there. Jae asked if that was part of the scenario. It can be seen that Kim Yi-hoon, Uncle Hain, is going to his room. The executor was surprised by this sudden incident. Suddenly his cell phone rang. The person calling was Kim Yi-hoon. Kim Yi-hoon asked Jaerim about the work Jaerim did even on Sundays. Kim Yi-hoon was there because Jaerim's position was in the guard zone, and he wanted to check the spot too. Jaerim deactivated his executor mode and was confused about the checkpoint that Kim Yi-hoon meant. Kim Yi-hoon agreed that he really wanted to check Jaerim checkpoint and asked Jaerim to meet for a moment. Kim Yi-hoon, who was outside his room, was surprised by the sound of footsteps inside Jaerim's room. While frowning, Jaerim said damn. Kim Yi-hoon opened the door and asked if Jaerim was inside. Jaerim hurriedly left. Kim Yi-hoon started to peek through the open door, surprised by what was in Jaerim's room. On the other hand, one of the Kim family members talked about Jaerim, who didn't look like the executor's subordinate. The one who said that was Kim Ho, Kim Yi-hoon's father, and beside him, Kim Young-sik, Kim Yi-hoon's older brother, Kim Ho, talking about Kim Young-sik's younger brother, who thought that Jaerim was the executor's subordinate. But Kim Ho and the Kim family members don't know the clarity, because previously Jaerim used powers that were too strong for ordinary people without superpowers to possess. Kim Ho looked at Kim Young-sik, and Kim Young-sik nodded as a sign that he agreed with his father's argument. Kim Ho will observe Jaerim secretly and send Kim Yi-hoon to Jaerim's place to investigate. On the other hand, before Kim Yi-hoon opened the door, he was surprised by the sound and thought if there was someone inside. Jaerim shouted at his men to change into office mode with a silent scream. Kim Yi-hoon opened the door slowly. As soon as he entered, he called Jaerim, while carrying promotional paper that says Devil Clean, which is Jaerim's work disguise. After entering, Kim Yi-hoon was surprised because it turned out there was a meeting. Kim Yi-hoon apologized because he thought there was only Jaerim because it was Sunday. By holding back his anger and thinking damn hero, Kim Yi-hoon asked Jaerim if he could come in. Jaerim reluctantly allowed it. Jaerim introduced his executive employee. Kim Yi-hoon focused on the person he thought was the mascot. J-Mode office is a marketing director. Suddenly a woman greeted Kim Yi-hoon, made Kim Yi-hoon fall in love and surprised him. She is Q. She said that she often sees Kim Yi-hoon on TV. Q in office mode is the planning director. Kim Yi-hoon shyly introduced himself to Q with his nickname Kim Lee-hoon. Q complimented Kim Lee-hoon that he looked better in person, which made Kim Lee-hoon uncomfortable, while Jaerim looked confused, starting to connect and thinking that this will be quite useful in the future. Suddenly the sound of a dog barking surprised Kim Lee-hoon. Kim Lee-hoon saw the dog as a cute dog and intended to hold it. The dog is K. K has the ability to make any part of his body into any animal he can touch. His superpower is called Beast Transformation. Kim Lee-hoon throws K at him while asking if Jaerim keeps a dog in the office. K is very bad at disguising himself, that's why his office mode is like that. Kim Lee-hoon asked Jaerim since when he kept a dog in the office. His question surprised Jaerim. Jaerim explained that it was a dog, before finishing explaining. Jaerim looked at Q to carry out his act and told Kim Lee-hoon to talk about it in the office. In the office, Jaerim explained that the dog had been thrown away and found in front of the office, Jaerim said while giving a fake cry. Kim Lee-hoon wondered who threw away a cute dog like this. Jaerim finds it difficult because he has to take care of him at the office, but he intends to take him home temporarily. Jaerim reasoned that because he would be staying at his in-laws' house, he was confused about what he should do. Kim Lee-hoon asked about the others. Jaerim reasoned that they were allergic to dogs. Kim Lee-hoon was confused because they looked fine, which surprised them both. Jae scratched his body while Q started pretending to sneeze. Jaerim reasoned that they kept him because Jaerim liked dogs, and the dog had grown up with them. Jaerim said that they should send him to an animal sanctuary now. K, who became a dog, pretended to be angry and tried to get away. Kim Lee-hoon, who heard that, told Jaerim to wait a moment. He will immediately ask his family for permission to bring his dog home. K looked at his brother with anxiety. Jaerim told K to infiltrate the Kim family residence and gather information in that form, and when the time had come, Jaerim and the others would prepare to kill. K was excited to hear that and told Jaerim to leave the bribery business to him. K intends to trap the Kim family with his cuteness and take even the slightest information from them. Jaerim praised K about K's very good spirit. Kim Lee-hoon came back quickly and called Jaerim. Kim Lee-hoon said that he got permission, which made Jaerim and his men happy. Kim Lee-hoon called his family that he was okay, and said that there was nothing suspicious here. Jaerim, who saw that from the office window, started to smile slyly. In the darkness, Jaerim called Kim Lee-hoon a fool. He made his left eye jet black like when he was the executor. And returning to the initial storyline, Jaerim managed to enter the Kim family. Jaerim opened the door with a smile and promised to make them regret it. Jaerim said letting him in here would be their biggest regret. Hain's father prepares a chicken that has been cooked, which makes Jaerim lose his focus. Hain's father welcomed Jaerim, but Jaerim was curious about how Hain's father could fry it that well. The rest of the Kim family began to greet him as well, and Jaerim responded by greeting them. Jaerim's girlfriend, Hain, asks Jaerim to sit next to her. Without saying much, Jaerim immediately accepted Hain's invitation. Jaerim, who was already hungry, wanted to eat his food immediately and think about his next steps later, but suddenly Grandpa Hain told Jaerim to wait. Hain's grandfather said that he prepared something for him. Jaerim was surprised and asked what this damn hero was planning, because he was currently hungry. Hain's grandfather asked questions and told both teams to give the correct answers. Team 1 was Hain's mother, Hain's eldest brother, and Hain's father. If the answer is wrong, then you can't eat. In Team 2 there are Hain, Uncle Hain, and Jaerim. Grandpa Hain Hanyeong Kim family regular quiz contest. Jaerim was confused and wondered if he answered wrong he wouldn't be able to eat. Hain's grandfather explains that if he joins the hero family he must know the basic knowledge needed. The first question: can eat roasted pig's feet. If Jaerim wants to try it, he has to press the button and he or one of his team members has to answer correctly, but he has a rival Team 1, and the game begins. Jaerim looked at Hain and now he knew the reason for requiring Jaerim to have an empty stomach. The first question was what should be done to catch someone with off-guard abilities. That question made Jaerim feel disturbed. Jaerim's grandfather and Hain's father want to see what their newest member can do. Kim Lee-hoon immediately rang the bell. Kim Lee-hoon wanted to answer it, making Hain's grandfather and father confused because they had previously coordinated. Hain covered his uncle's mouth, making his father praise her daughter's behavior, who knew what his father meant. Jaerim answered and said that the answer was their social weakness. Jaerim's words made the Kim family members confused. Hain asks her boyfriend what social weakness means. Jaerim answered that even though you are skilled, you are still human, thinking that that doesn't apply to villains. Jaerim added that if someone has strong abilities, there will be limits that they must obey. Jaerim thought, especially when it comes to heroes, they have honor. And Jaerim confidently answered that the answer must be social weakness, making Hain's grandfather feel that his argument was quite reasonable. But Hain's grandfather thought that the answer was wrong, which made Jaerim feel annoyed. Hain's brother answered that the answer was a condition of ability. Hain's brother surprised Jaerim with his statement. Jaerim felt that his argument made some sense because every person who has abilities has conditions that must be met. And if the conditions are not met, they will get a penalty. But Jaerim felt that the condition didn't matter if someone was very strong. Hain heard Jaerim's stomach growling and made him feel uncomfortable. Hain was worried about Jaerim, who was hungry. Hain made sure he would answer correctly next time. But Jaerim was worried about Hain, who must also be hungry, and said that he was fine. Hain's father calls Jaerim, making Jaerim ask why he called him. Hain's father felt that even though the answer was wrong, the answer was quite interesting. Jaerim hoped to get the food that was in front of Hain's father. But Hain's father gave Jaerim a watch. Hain said that it wasn't a gift and he wanted to give it to him. Hain's father explained that if Jaerim pressed the middle button, there would be a call to summon the assigned guard, which made Jaerim feel impressed. Hain was curious about the other button and pressed it. Jaerim was surprised by the green light around him. Hain's father explained that if you press the button, there will be a barrier around you that will protect you and block some attacks. Jaerim ordered the barrier and felt that the intensity was quite high. Hain's mother explained that Ha-hyun, his eldest son, made it. They made sure that the quality was guaranteed. Jaerim's mother is grateful because she will now feel safe if there is a villain nearby. Jaerim thinks that Ha-hyun is very great and will let him live when his plan starts later. Hain warns Jaerim not to be careless even if he gets the watch. Jaerim nods and will remember Hain's warning. Hain's grandfather shouted and was about to start the second question. Hain's grandfather started to read the second question. Jaerim still hoped that his team could answer it and be able to eat. They rang the bell and answered each other's questions, and Jaerim still hoped that he could answer them and gave Hain food until he was full. And as a result, Kim Lee-hoon said that he might not be used to this. Hain's mother asked Jaerim if he was okay. Jaerim's team got 6 out of 10 questions correct. Jaerim said he was fine while thinking that he had done his best. Hain's grandfather thinks it's worth it and wants to add 10 more questions. Hain's father wants to get more food. Jaerim said that it was extraordinary, thinking that previously Jaerim had been starved, but now he was being tortured with food. Hain's grandfather started the next question. Hain's grandfather asked what the problem was with the hero support system, making Jaerim immediately petrified and starting to remember his past. In his childhood, Jaerim was called by someone. The person was a woman. She asked the young Jaerim if he wanted to be a hero. Hain's grandfather told Jaerim to answer his question. While clenching his fists, Jaerim said that he didn't know. Kay, who saw Jaerim, was worried about his brother. Hain raised his hand and asked his grandfather to rest for a while, because Hain wanted to buy ice cream with Jaerim. Under the hot sky, Jaerim thought if he wanted to get rid of those hero people, Jaerim said to himself while eating ice cream. Hain calls Jaerim. Jaerim asks why he called her. Hain apologizes to her family for being a bit strange, with all the quizzes and prizes. Hain explains that they did that because they actually wanted to welcome Jaerim. Jaerim felt that there was no need for that, because he already felt grateful that they cared about him. Hain immediately went and said that it was a good thing. Hain asked Jaerim to walk slowly to breathe fresh air, because he would return to his house by giving his family ice cream. Jaerim thought that he had made Hain worried and was able to read it well. Hain was surprised by the barrier in Hain's house. Jaerim knew that they were indeed a hero family, but he wondered whether this level of security was really necessary. Jaerim looked around wondering if there was a gap to get in. Hain returned home while humming. As he was about to enter the house, suddenly a large black shadow appeared behind him. Jaerim, who was still outside, was shocked by the broken barrier in Hain's house. Jaerim thought that something like that was impossible. On the other hand, the previous black shadow was a robot and had captured Hain. Jaerim was still surprised because there was a gap in the barrier, while the robot started to take Hain away with its red eyes. Jaerim was shocked by the cracks in the Kim family barrier. He didn't expect that there would actually be a gap in the barrier. On the other hand, Hain is being kidnapped by a robot. Jaerim wondered if it was a real thing. Jaerim smiled slyly and was confused by the Kim family who really cared about his safety. Raising his hand with bad intentions, Jaerim didn't expect the Kim family to make a mistake like this. Jaerim has a plan to use the barrier that has been penetrated to get rid of the people who gave him the previous quiz. Jaerim thought that the national evil was the heroes themselves, while thinking about that there was someone who would hold Jaerim's shoulders. Jaerim realized that someone wanted to hold his shoulder and immediately turned his head. It turned out that it was his fiance's father, Kim Young-sik, who wanted to greet him. Kim Young-sik asked if he had surprised him. Jaerim said no. Kim Young-sik said that they would continue with the second round of the quiz, which made Jaerim feel uncomfortable. Jaerim thought that Kim Young-sik would definitely torture him with food until he gave up, but Jaerim wouldn't just let it go. While Jaerim was thinking, Kim Young-sik called Jaerim. Jaerim, who was acting, answered with an innocent face. Suddenly Kim Young-sik's hand went to Jaerim. He patted Jaerim on the back, which made him flinch. Kim Young-sik said that what his father said was just a joke, so Jaerim didn't need to be confused about the answer. Jaerim, holding his sore back, said that Kim Young-sik's pat was very strong even before transforming. Jaerim misfocused when he saw the ice cream that had fallen in front of Hain's house. Jaerim had a feeling that Hain would have problems when he returned home. When he heard the loud voice, Jaerim felt angry. Jaerim quickly approached the loud voice, making Kim Young-sik fall behind him. Jaerim thought that the hole was too small to fit through. Jaerim was confused by someone so bold, who targeted someone at the residence of the legend, Hain's grandfather, Kim Ho, apart from members of his organization. Jaerim saw that the robot was trying to destroy the Kim family's protective barrier while carrying Hain on his shoulders. Jaerim was annoyed with the robot and the robot stared at him. Jaerim slowly walked towards the robot. With feelings of anger that flared up, Jaerim clenched his fists and started to release his superpower, even though he knew his identity would be discovered if he did so. But Jaerim felt angry because he had kidnapped his Hain. Jaerim took out his superpower from his hand, but suddenly the superpower disappeared. Jaerim was confused by his superpower suddenly disappearing. In front of him, the robot saw him. He prepared his laser attack on Jaerim. When the robot released its laser, Jaerim was still confused about his superpower not working. Seeing the attack, he began to try to block the attack with his physique. The robot then fired a laser at him, but the attack was prevented by Hain's father. Kim Young-sik asked him if he was okay. Kim Young-sik told Jaerim to hand over the robot to him and told Jaerim to evacuate. Jaerim, who had recovered from his anger, thought that he had lost his mind for a moment. Jaerim asked Kim Young-sik why he hasn't transformed yet. Kim Young-sik was also surprised because his transformation hadn't worked since earlier. While they were talking, the robot started its laser attack again. Jaerim told Kim Young-sik to evacuate with him. Kim Young-sik started hitting his hands together. Kim Young-sik said even though he couldn't use his abilities. While pumping strength in his legs, Kim Young-sik continued, but if it puts his daughter in danger. Jaerim was surprised by Hain's father's sudden change in aura. Kim Young-sik finished pumping and immediately jumped towards the robot. Kim Young-sik continued if he did that he didn't deserve to be called a hero as he started hitting the robot. In one attack, the robot hit Hain's father and made him fall. Jaerim was amazed by Kim Young-sik, who fell in just one attack. Jaerim felt that Kim Young-sik couldn't possibly lose that easily and would definitely get up and fight. Jaerim, who previously felt that Kim Young-sik could fight back, began to doubt when he saw his situation. Kim Young-sik acts as if it only tickles him, annoying Jaerim with his cool behavior. Jaerim became very confused because if it was like this, Jaerim couldn't be saved. Just after he thought he had an idea, he looked at the watch that Kim Young-sik gave him before, one of whose abilities was to create a barrier. The robot was seen immediately going downstairs. Kim Young-sik, holding his shoulder, said to himself that he had to take it slow like that. Kim Young-sik told Jaerim to immediately evacuate, while Jaerim instead started using the shield that was on the clock, and prepared to run. He started running towards the robot, which made Kim Young-sik surprised by the incident. Jaerim started slamming himself into the robot, making Kim Young-sik panic and scream his name. Jaerim hit the robot, which caused the robot to be knocked back. Kim Young-sik was surprised by Jaerim's behavior, who actually attacked him even though he had told him to back off. Jaerim made preparations to withstand the robot's attack. Shortly after the robot began to prepare to release its laser, the Jaerim barrier slowly began to disappear. Jaerim's barrier started to disappear because he had previously made a call for help. But Jaerim started to get suspicious and looked at his watch again. He felt something was strange and started to deactivate his barrier. Jaerim wondered why the other Hanyeon Kim family members still hadn't arrived. Kim Young-sik ran towards Jaerim and was confused by Jaerim's behavior, which actually deactivated his barrier. Lessa began to activate his attack. Jaerim, who was already suspicious, decided he wanted to bet, and he also wondered whether his suspicions were true. Hain started to wake up and called Jaerim, Oppa. With his elbow, Hain ordered the robot to stop immediately. Hain pressed the red button behind the robot, which made the robot stop functioning. Jaerim, Hain's father, Hain's mother, and Hain's uncle were shocked by the incident, but after he pressed the button his hand slipped. Hain started to fall, and tried to endure the pain of falling by closing his eyes. Jaerim saved Hain, who almost fell, by catching her. The robot suddenly became active again, but instead of attacking Jaerim, the robot started to deactivate the system again. Jaerim thought that his suspicions were true. The robot started to open its robot head and saw someone there. The robot's head began to fall to the ground. The person inside turned out to be Hain's eldest brother, Ha-hyun. He told Jaerim that what he had done before was very dangerous. Hain quickly got out of Jaerim's arms. Jaerim was surprised by Hain's sudden descent. An angry Hain headed towards his eldest brother. While screaming, Hain explains that they were the ones who acted recklessly. Hain vomits blood, which makes her sister worried. Jaerim was worried about Hain's condition. He asked if Hain was okay. Hain explained that he was fine and he was just angry. Hain had previously warned his brother not to test using extreme methods like this. The other Kim family who were there pretended not to know anything. K, who turned into a dog, was surprised by the behavior of the people there because all he had done previously was rest quietly, which made K confused by the incident. K rushed and ran towards Jaerim, surprising Hain's mother. K whispered to Jaerim, asking his brother if they had been caught. Jaerim then picked up K and stroked him. Jaerim looked at Kim Young-sik. Jaerim explained that previously he thought this was an extension of his quiz, but he was confused by their excessive behavior. Kim Young-sik broke out in cold sweat and was confused about what to say. Jaerim glanced at Kim Young-sik and asked him to explain in more detail. In the previous incident, Kim Lee-hoon explained that there was nothing suspicious there. Kim Young-sik told his father that perhaps Jaerim was an ordinary person with an extraordinary physique. Kim Ho will then show something to Jaerim. Kim Ho wants to show the meaning of an ordinary person in the Kim family. After the flashback, Jaerim started asking questions. Jaerim asked the Kim family about them, who seemed to be preparing practical theory for the heroes and villains quiz. Kim Young-sik explained that they actually didn't want to go this far, but because at that time Jaerim activated the barrier to fight the robot, alerted the guards, and did not prioritize running away, making the incident complicated. Kim Young-sik explained that Jaerim should have followed the procedures correctly and not suddenly turned off the barrier. Jaerim apologized about that. But Kim Young-sik and the rest of the Kim family must also apologize because they made it dangerous and went too far. Ha-hyun apologized because he was too serious in acting. But Ha-hyun was also curious about how Jaerim knew. Jaerim explained even without pressing the call button. It would be strange if the hero didn't appear even though something happened in the courtyard. And when Jaerim saw the head of the robot, he thought it was Ha-hyun, who was the head of the association's research department. Jaerim thought that what was most suspicious was that he didn't take Hain as a hostage. Kim Ho was surprised that Jaerim was able to realize all that from the start. Kim Ho feels that even though Jaerim is an ordinary person, Jaerim has extraordinary courage even though his life history is ordinary. Jaerim felt that he was being praised too much even though in his mind he was confused about whether he was being suspected or being praised. With this incident, Kim Ho was sure now that he had seen Jaerim's extraordinary talent. Jaerim was shocked and wondered what that meant. Jaerim was confused by Kim Ho, who put aside his suspicions and accepted him as his son-in-law. Kim Ho asks Jaerim about the hero sponsor mentioned earlier in the quiz. Jaerim answered that it was a freelancer sponsorship program, an adoption program. Kim Ho added to Jaerim's answer that he wanted to create a new program, namely an ordinary people development program. Kim Ho asked Jaerim to get his support and become a hero. Jaerim suddenly remembered that Kim Ho was the personnel audit manager of the Heroes Association. Hearing Kim Ho's request made Jaerim confused. Jaerim, who is a villain, must carry out civilian training. Jaerim thinks that Kim Ho is crazy and wants to make him a hero. Hain, who heard this, felt angry, but when Hain wanted to explain to his grandfather that his oppa was just an ordinary person, his mother stopped him. Hain's mother told her father that his father had not discussed this before, while Kay, who was in dog form, thought that Kim Ho was crazy and wanted to make his brother a hero. Kim Ho knows that previously no one had trained someone who didn't have previous abilities, but Kim Ho emphasized that ordinary people can also become heroes. Kim Ho explained that currently only people who have super abilities can become heroes, but in the past people who did not have superpowers could also be heroes. For example, a mother helps her child who was hit by a vehicle. Kim Ho felt that Jaerim had the determination to save other people, and could work miracles in an instant, like people in the past. Kim Ho's words shocked Jaerim. Kim Ho felt that things like that gave encouragement to the people around him, but that feeling had disappeared. When Kim Ho was explaining, Kim Lee-hoon interrupted and felt that his father had superpowers a long time ago. Kim Ho hit Kim Lee-hoon, which made his self-esteem fall. Kim Ho added that his granddaughter wanted to be a hero too, making Hain embarrassed by her grandfather's statement. Kim Ho gets to the point and says that Jaerim has potential. Kim Ho asked him if Jaerim wanted to think about it first. Hain curiously glanced at Jaerim. With his head bowed, Jaerim answered. Jaerim apologized to Kim Ho because he felt that he was not the right person to be a hero. Ha-hyun could only nod while Hain's father was a bit disappointed to hear that. Jaerim added that instead of protecting many people, Jaerim only wanted to protect one person. Jaerim's words surprised Hain. Hain slowly started to look at Jaerim. Jaerim and Hain stared at each other, making the previously tense atmosphere better. Kim Ho heard the choice Jaerim made. He respected his decision and gave up forcing him to become a hero. Kim Ho thought that Jaerim would be interested in becoming a hero, even though Jaerim was an ordinary person, but it turned out that their efforts were in vain. Kim Lee-hoon, who heard this, was confused, because Kim Lee-hoon felt that his brother and Ha-hyun were the ones who suffered the most in the play. Ha-hyun also admitted and felt that it was too real to be called a play, because Ha-hyun had to break the barrier in an invisible place. Jaerim, with a blank stare, was surprised because it turned out that the one who damaged it was Ha-hyun. Hain, who was beside him, was confused by Jaerim, who was daydreaming. Kim Ho told Ha-hyun to repair the barrier because there was no point in breaking it in an invisible place. Jaerim, who heard it, didn't want the barrier to be repaired now. Nervously, Jaerim interrupted their conversation to buy time, making Ha-hyun ask what Jaerim wanted to ask. Jaerim was curious about why his father couldn't use his abilities before and asked Ha-hyun if that was his tool. Ha-hyun agreed and answered that it was still in the testing stage, so it only lasted a few minutes. His statement surprised Jaerim. Kim Young-sik reasoned that if he hit Ha-hyun, his charade would be over in a minute. Ha-hyun apologizes to his father because he is that weak. Ha-hyun is surprised by his son's statement. He didn't mean to belittle him. Ha-hyun tells his father to step aside because he will repair the barrier. Jaerim is amazed that Ha-hyun can create a product that can prevent someone's abilities. Jaerim thought the product was very interesting, but on the other hand, for him, who is a villain, this product is very dangerous. Hain touched Jaerim's body, who was thinking. Jaerim glanced at Hain and asked him what he wanted to talk about. Hain asked him to come up and rest with him. Jaerim happily complied with Hain's request. Jaerim talked to Hain about his dream of becoming a hero. Hain answered that that was his dream when he was little. On the other hand, Kim Ho, Kim Lee-hoon, and Kim Young-sik seemed to be watching a soap opera. Kim Lee-hoon asked his father that as the head of the Human Resources Department, he interfered too much in other people's affairs. Kim Ho told his youngest son to be quiet. After that, evening arrived, inside the Hanyeong Kim family residence. Hain said goodnight to his fiancée. Jaerim also said goodnight to Hain. Hain then went into his room and closed the door. Jaerim sat like he usually did. Jaerim then started to take off his glasses. Jaerim asked someone should they discuss the report and analyze the hero. The person he asked was Kay, who had returned to his human form again. Hearing his boss's question, Kay smiled broadly. Kay answered that this was a big discovery to be able to find out about the various discoveries of the Kim family. But Kay regretted it because they couldn't take advantage of the damage to the barrier because Ha-hyun immediately repaired it. Then Jaerim wanted to tell Kay something. Jaerim reached into his pocket, which made Kay curious about the glowing object that Jaerim would take out. The glowing object turned out to be green glass. Kay was surprised by the object that Jaerim took out, and it was as if he had seen it before. Jaerim told Kay to give it to Jae for analysis. It turned out to be a cracked barrier. When he saw a cracked barrier, Jaerim was grateful that he took it at that time. K feels that his brother is really great because now they don't need to worry about breaking the Kim family barrier. Jaerim said that this was the start of being able to beat them. Jaerim then laughed in his room at his initial plan to defeat them. On the other hand, the legendary Kim Ho is sitting and looking at the garden. Kim Ho said to someone behind him that it was a shame that Jaerim didn't want to be a hero even though he was a good resource. Kim Ho asked someone behind him if he thought that too. The person behind him turned out to be a hero inspector. Kim Ho asked Inspector Hero what he thought about our son-in-law, and asked him what he thought Jaerim was like. Inspector Hero was actually confused as to why Kim Ho wanted to train someone who didn't have the ability. Inspector Hero added, but he had courage, and his stamina is also quite good. But he wanted to observe a little longer. The chief inspector of the association named Lee Yoon. Kim Ho asked Lee Yoon whether that meant he wanted to continue his evaluation. Lee Yoon answered that he only wanted to monitor him. Kim Ho said that it was the same as assessing him. Lee Yoon apologized to him. Kim Ho started to stand up, saying he was sure that the young man could fulfill his expectations. With a serious look, Lee Yoon understood what his leader meant. Lee Yoon said that evaluation for someone without abilities had never been done before, but he would still do it. He said that from now on, he would appoint On Jaerim as the Kim Lee-hoon Association hero candidate. Those who heard that were shocked. On Jaerim was known as the worst criminal. Jaerim looked at Kim Lee-hoon with an annoyed face, while Kim Lee-hoon looked at Jaerim's face happily. Kim Lee-hoon told Jaerim that he was happy to escort Mr. Jaerim. Jaerim covered his face and was confused about how it could be like this. He imagined his fiancée Hain previously encouraging him made Jaerim have to endure his discomfort for Hain's sake. Jaerim was relieved because previously he told his men to always activate office mode so everything should be fine. But when the door opened, everything changed. Jaerim was surprised to see something behind the door. Jaerim was greeted by his men like a leader company. Jaerim in cold sweat looked at Kim Lee-hoon quickly, wanting to know what he thought about this. Jaerim saw Kim Lee-hoon, who looked very confused. Jaerim went straight to Jae angrily. He said that he had never asked for something like this. Jae thought that something like this was a general office situation. Jaerim thought that Jae was crazy because he had been in it for too long. In office mode, Jaerim invited Kim Lee-hoon into his office. While drinking coffee, Kim Lee-hoon asked Jaerim, making Jaerim nervous. Kim Lee-hoon asked about the 90-degree greeting that his company did. He asked whether it was included in company regulations and whether Hain knew about it. Jaerim explained that it wasn't like that before, maybe because they wanted to show respect because a hero had come. Jaerim thought that if Hain found out about that, he would 100% be disappointed.
Appa, Uncle said you behaved casually at the office?
Kim Lee-hoon believed Jaerim's explanation and thought that respect was important. Jaerim agreed. Jaerim explained to Kim Lee-hoon that he was not a hero but just an ordinary person. Kim Lee-hoon pointed to Jaerim and said that he was indeed an ordinary person. Jaerim explained when assessing a hero, the statement just now can reduce the hero's value by 3 points according to the standard. His statement made Jaerim confused. Jaerim was confused about what Kim Lee-hoon was talking about. Yesterday Kim Lee-hoon's father Kim Ho had said nonsense, but he didn't expect his son to do the same thing. Jaerim, who was tired of Kim Lee-hoon's ramblings, thought that he might be having delusions and he would cure him. Jaerim then pressed the red button on his sleeve. Suddenly someone behind the door started knocking on the door. That person was Q. He was called Jaerim, but Q acted to come there because he needed Jaerim's approval to sign the document. Kim Lee-hoon, who saw Q, immediately didn't move and his heart was beating fast. Jaerim, I know that previously Kim Lee-hoon had melted towards Q and Jaerim wanted to use that to get away from him. Jaerim was surprised by a yellow piece of paper on top of his document. On the document it was written that this was the rest of Seer Z. Z was the former worst criminal who had been destroyed by Jaerim. Q wanted Jaerim to participate directly in the external meeting in the afternoon. Jaerim accepting Q's request while thinking that the rest of the ZS must be fun. Kim Lee-hoon, who heard that, also wanted to join in, making Jaerim uncomfortable. Q started walking towards Kim Lee-hoon. He asked Kim Lee-hoon, making Kim Lee-hoon surprised. Q said that he had liked him for a long time and asked him to come drink coffee with him while thinking that this was easy enough just to put sleeping pills in his drink. Kim Lee-hoon firmly refused because he was currently working. Kim Lee-hoon's statement made Q have to hold back his anger. Jaerim was confused because he thought that Kim Lee-hoon should be interested in Q. Kim Lee-hoon also explained that he was also in charge of protecting Jaerim. Suddenly there was a flash of light from the building next to Kim Lee-hoon. Feeling that it was an attack, he quickly went to Jaerim and said that it was dangerous, making Jaerim even more confused. Jaerim quickly hit Jaerim's body, making him who didn't use his superpower in pain. Kim Lee-hoon quickly turned around and prepared his superpower while asking who dared to shoot here. Q was surprised by the director who was in a helpless state. Kim Lee-hoon looked feeling guilty because he thought there was a gunshot. Jaerim, who fell, was confused by his absurd behavior. Kim Lee-hoon apologized because maybe someone put a mirror in the building next door. Jaerim was confused by this bastard's behavior. It turned out that someone was shining a binoculars at them. Lee-yoon, who turned out to be the person holding the binoculars, started to lower the binoculars. He felt if he makes a mistake and is already wrong. Kim Lee-hoon warned Jaerim that it was a dangerous thing. After that incident, Kim Lee-hoon continued to follow Jaerim. Kim Lee-hoon took a piece of paper that would be given to Jaerim. Kim Lee-hoon asked Jaerim to give the item that Jaerim was going to touch to him first because maybe there's a hidden razor here. Kim Lee-hoon deducted 2 points from Jaerim because Kim Lee-hoon's careless behavior made Jaerim upset. Kim Lee-hoon deducted Jaerim's points again because he had told Jaerim to stay with him. Kim Lee-hoon blew the whistle. With the referee's shirt, he called Jaerim a foul and gave him a red card. Kim Lee-hoon always followed him, making Jaerim even more annoyed and wanted to vent his anger at him. Jaerim came to Kim Lee-hoon, who was leaning against the wall. Kim Lee-hoon, after seeing Jaerim, he was really convinced. Kim Lee-hoon was sure that Jaerim was not aware of the dangers around him. Kim Lee-hoon firmly made it clear that Jaerim did not understand the meaning of being a hero at all. With a flat face, Jaerim sighed and agreed with Kim Lee-hoon's words. Jaerim asked Kim Lee-hoon until when should he do this evaluation. Kim Lee-hoon, who heard it, became confused. Jaerim explained that Kim Lee-hoon's presence made the employees there complain because he always disturbed meetings, and there were also complaints that his fans blocked the corridor, which made it difficult for the employees there. Jaerim thanked him for wanting to look after him, but Jaerim said if this went too far, Kim Lee-hoon apologized about it. Jaerim said he was truly sorry. He asked Kim Lee-hoon not to bother him and wait quietly outside. Jaerim kicked him out because there was currently a meeting. Kim Lee-hoon thought that Jaerim had kicked him out. Jaerim breathed a sigh of relief. He felt that the bother had disappeared for now. Jaerim said that he having had enough of the leech. Jaerim previously thought he could divert attention by giving him a fake fan. Jay felt that the director had worked hard and he continued. If the sound inside the room couldn't be heard outside, Jaerim didn't need to worry. Jaerim felt that it was a good thing. He asked Jay to check again on the external targets that would come. Jay was the one who heard it, agree, and will carry out the executor command. Jay pressed the projector button to display the image. The remaining member of Z, who was previously known as a dangerous criminal, and also Z's right-hand man who could use teleportation, named Y, Jay, and his partner had confirmed that Y would be involved in a dangerous trade at around 4 p.m. Today, the person suspected of being the mastermind behind Y's destruction is someone whose name cannot be revealed in the story. But that name made Jaerim interested and he wanted to deal with that person directly. Jaerim looked at the door. He wanted to intervene directly, but the problem was someone behind the door. Jaerim felt that Kim Lee-hoon would stick to him. Suddenly Kim Lee-hoon surprised. He had a hunch. While looking happy, he had a hunch that today's dinner was Korean seafood. Someone handed Kim Lee-hoon coffee. Jaerim was surprised by Q's sudden arrival. Q, with his office mode, has the fake name Joo Seon, asked Kim Lee-hoon to drink it because he had worked hard to guard the director. While blushing, he thanked him, but Kim Lee-hoon said that Joo Seon didn't need to bother. With a sad face, Joo Seon said to Kim Lee-hoon whether he had made Kim Lee-hoon feel uncomfortable. Kim Lee-hoon said that it wasn't like that, but he was currently working. With a smile, Joo Seon said that Kim Lee-hoon was really right. Kim Lee-hoon was surprised and blushed by Joo Seon's hand, which started to hold his face. Joo Seon continued that he was a good example for the heroes. Joo Seon held Kim Lee-hoon's face because he wanted to take away the dust that was stuck to his face. At that moment he remembered something. Kim Lee-hoon asked Joo Seon to wait a moment, making Joo Seon confused with Kim Lee-hoon. Kim Lee-hoon opened the door. A moment after opening it, he was shocked. Kim Lee-hoon was sure that there were two people here before. He saw Jaerim's empty chair and was confused about where he was. Kim Lee-hoon immediately ran towards the office glass. Kim Lee-hoon then looked down. Kim Lee-hoon seeing Jaerim's car on the highway. Kim Lee-hoon was surprised to see Jaerim, who was already in the car. He shouted for Jaerim, but Jaerim didn't hear him. Joo Seon, who was behind him, told Kim Lee-hoon that the director was leaving for work. Q held back his anger because Kim Lee-hoon, who teased him, said that the director had used a separate elevator connected to the meeting room. Joo Seon said that perhaps the director had forgotten that Kim Lee-hoon still here. Kim Lee-hoon then opened the company window, surprising Joo Seon with his behavior. Jaerim, who was in his car, felt relieved because he was far from Kim Lee-hoon, who was like a leech. Jaerim felt that he had to leave quickly, but suddenly his focus was diverted by a voice above him. Kim Lee-hoon quickly came down from the top floor. Jaerim was surprised by Kim Lee-hoon, who coming down from upstairs. Kim Lee-hoon, who was coming down, said that they should still go together.